Friends, if you want to watch super hit movie Black Panther Wakanda Forever in English, then you must like this video. If you are visiting our channel for the first time, don't forget to subscribe West Films to our channel. Friends, in today's video, the movie we are going to talk about is called Black Panther. Wakanda Forever, we will talk about what this movie is and where you can watch it, all the interesting facts about this movie in today's video. I'm going to tell you, I'm also going to give you all the information on which OTT platform or on which satellite channel you will watch this movie. Also, we will talk in detail about the technical department, music department, pre-production filming, post-production, budget, box office, collection of this film. We will also talk about the story of this film, and I will also give you a small review of the story of this film apart. From this, we will discuss about the facts of this film's storyline, starcast actors' performance in the film, and which character has played which role. That's why I request you friends to watch this video till the end, so let's start the video. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a 2022 American superhero film based on Marvel Comics featuring the character Shuri, Black Panther. Produced by Marvel Studios and distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, it is the sequel to Black Panther 2018 and the 30th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU. Directed by Ryan Coogler, who co-wrote the screenplay with Joe Robert Cole, the film stars Letitia Wright as Shuri, Black Panther, alongside Lupita Nyong'o, Danai Gurira, Winston Duke, Florence Kasumba, Dominique Thorne, Michaela Coel, Mabel Cadena, Tenoch Huerta Mejia, Martin Freeman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and Angela Bassett. In the film, the leaders of Wakanda fight to protect their nation in the wake of King T'Challa's death. Ideas for a sequel began after the release of Black Panther in February 2018. Coogler negotiated to return as director in the following months, and Marvel Studios officially confirmed the sequel's development in mid-2019. Plans for the film changed in August 2020, when Black Panther star and T'Challa actor Chadwick Boseman died from colon cancer, with Marvel choosing not to recast his role. The return of other main cast members from the first film was confirmed that November, and the sequel's title was revealed to be Black Panther Wakanda Forever in May 2021. Filming began in late June in Atlanta, taking place at both Trilith Studios and Tyler Perry Studios before moving to Massachusetts in August, but was halted in November to allow Wright to recover from an injury sustained during filming. It resumed by mid-January 2022 and wrapped in late March in Puerto Rico. Black Panther Wakanda Forever premiered at the El Capitan Theater and the Dolby Theater in Hollywood, Los Angeles on October 26, 2022 and was released in the United States on November 11th as the final film in Phase 4 of the MCU. The film received generally positive reviews from critics and grossed $859.2 million worldwide, becoming the sixth highest grossing film of 2022. Wakanda Forever and Bassett's performance received numerous awards and nominations, including 5 Academy Awards winning costume design, 1 British Academy Film Award, 6 Critics' Choice Movie Awards winning 2, 2 Golden Globe Awards winning 1, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards. A third film is in development. Plot: T'Challa, King of Wakanda, is suffering from a terminal illness which his sister Shuri believes can be cured by the heart-shaped herb. Shuri attempts to synthetically recreate the herb after it was burned by Eric Killmonger Stevens, but fails to do so before T'Challa dies. A year later, Wakanda faces pressure from other nations to share their vibranium, with attempts to steal it by force. Queen Ramonda urges Shuri to continue her herb research to create a new Black Panther, but Shuri refuses, believing the Black Panther is no longer needed. In the Atlantic, a U.S. expedition team uses a vibranium detector to find a deposit underwater, but a group of blue-skinned, water-breathing superhumans led by Namor kills them. The CIA suspects it was Wakanda's involvement. Namor confronts Ramonda and Shuri after bypassing Wakanda's security. He blames Wakanda for the vibranium race and gives them an ultimatum. Hand over the scientist who created the detector, or he will attack Wakanda. Shuri and Okoye learn from CIA agent Everett K. Ross that the scientist is MIT student Riri Williams. They confront her at the university before being pursued by the FBI and Namor's warriors, who defeat Okoye and take Shuri and Williams underwater to meet Namor. Angered by Okoye's failure to protect Shuri, Ramonda strips her of her title as General of the Dora Milaje and seeks out Nakia, who has been living in Haiti since the blip. Namor shows Shuri his vibranium-rich underwater kingdom of Talokan, protected for centuries from the surface world. Bitter at the surface world for the slavery and genocide of his people, Namor proposes an alliance with Wakanda against the rest of the world, threatening destruction if they refuse. Nakia helps Shuri and Williams escape, accidentally killing 2 Talokanal guards. Namor retaliates with an attack on Wakanda, during which Ramonda drowns while saving Williams. Namor vows to return with his army, and Wakanda's citizens relocate to the Jabari Mountains for their safety. Meanwhile, Ross is arrested by his ex-wife, CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, for secretly exchanging classified intelligence with Wakandans. After Ramonda's funeral, Shuri uses a remnant of the herb that gave Namor's people their superhuman abilities to reconstruct the heart-shaped herb. She ingests it, gaining superhuman abilities and meeting Killmonger in the ancestral plane, who questions if she will seek revenge or be as honorable as T'Challa. Shuri dons a new Black Panther suit and is accepted by the other Wakandan tribes as the Black Panther. Despite M'Baku's urges for peace, Shuri is determined to exact vengeance on Namor for Ramonda's death and orders an immediate counterattack on Talokan. Preparing for battle, with Io assuming the position of General of the Dora Milaje, Shuri bestows the Midnight Angel armor upon Okoye, who in turn recruits Dora Milaje member Aneka to join her. Williams creates an Iron Man-esque powered exoskeleton to aid the Wakandans. The Wakandans use a seafaring vessel to lure Namor and his warriors to the surface with a vibranium detector as battle ensues. Shuri traps Namor in a fighter aircraft, aiming to weaken him. They crash on a desert beach and fight. Shuri gains the upper hand but sees a vision of Ramonda, urging Namor to yield and offering a peaceful alliance. Namor agrees, ending the battle. His cousin, Namora, is upset by the surrender, but he believes the alliance will strengthen Talokan. Williams returns to MIT, leaving her suit behind, while Okoye rescues Ross. Shuri plants more heart-shaped herbs to ensure the Black Panther mantle's future. In her absence, M'Baku challenges for the throne. Shuri visits Nakia in Haiti and burns her funeral robe to finally grieve for T'Challa, honoring Ramonda's wishes. In a mid-credit scene, Shuri learns that Nakia and T'Challa had a son named Toussaint, whom Nakia has been raising in secret. Toussaint reveals his Wakandan name is T'Challa. Cast: Letitia Wright as Shuri Black Panther, the Princess of Wakanda who designs new technology for the nation. Wright was given a larger role in the film following the death of Chadwick Boseman, who starred in previous MCU media as Shuri's older brother T'Challa, Black Panther. Wright said Shuri turns to her technology as a way to grieve T'Challa. Lupita Nyong'o as a former war dog, an undercover spy for Wakanda from the River Tribe. Nyong'o said Nakia has matured, following both the blip and the death of T'Challa, explaining that her character's priorities have shifted and sharpened, while adding that Nakia remains the one you want to call when you're in trouble. Danai Gurira as Okoye, the General of the Dora Milaje, Wakanda's all-female special forces, and a former Avenger. In the film, Okoye takes on the mantle of one of the Midnight Angels, along with Aneka. Gurira said the film would explore many facets of Okoye's humanity. Winston Duke as M'Baku, a powerful warrior and leader of Wakanda's mountain tribe, the Jabari. Duke indicated that following the Jabari's involvement in the Avengers Infinity War 2018 and Avengers Endgame 2019, the tribe is no longer isolated from the rest of Wakanda. He also felt M'Baku was trying to figure out how to move forward in this new world for Wakanda, much like many in the real world were trying to do during the COVID-19 pandemic. Florence Kasumba, a member and the second-in-command who later becomes the General of the Dora Milaje after Okoye is stripped of her duties. She is romantically involved with Aneka. Dominique Thorne as Riri Williams, an MIT student and genius inventor from Chicago who creates a suit of armor that rivals the one built by Tony Stark Iron Man. Director Ryan Coogler noted that Williams is a foil to Shuri, adding, "There's a thread of similarity between the two. but they are also very, very different, with Williams and Shuri's relationship representing a similar exploration of the diversity of the Black experience as T'Challa and Killmonger's relationship did in Black Panther. As Aneka, a Wakandan warrior and member of the Dora Milaje who is romantically involved with Io. In the film, Aneka takes on the mantle of one of the Midnight Angels along with Okoye. Coyle was drawn to the character being queer as in the comics, and Coogler described Aneka as kind of a rebel. Mabel Cadena as Namora, Namor's cousin and right-hand woman who looks up to him as a father figure. De Noche Huerta Mejia as Namor, the king of Talokan, an ancient civilization of blue-skinned underwater-dwelling people who refer to him as the feathered serpent god, Kukulkan. Mejia said Namor decides to get involved in the surface world after T'Challa publicly reveals the truth of Wakanda at the end of the first film, which consequently puts Talokan in jeopardy, leading Namor and his people to take action to protect themselves. Mejia also confirmed that the character is a mutant. As in the comics, Coogler said Namor has lived a really long time and knows no equal in terms of his capabilities, stating that the character could be as strong as both Thor and Hulk if he's around enough water. Mejia called Namor an anti-hero, explaining that it was important to both him and Coogler to humanize the character by making his motivations understandable, despite him having an antagonistic role in the film. Coogler was enthused to include Namor's really unique features from the comics, including his ankle wings and pointy ears. Coogler focused on those features to contrast Namor with the DC Comics superhero Aquaman, as the two characters are often compared to each other. Coogler also described the character as kind of an asshole, kind of romantic, and just incredibly powerful. The film changes the meaning of Namor's name from Avenging Sun in Atlantean, as in the comics, to Niño Sin Amor, Spanish for child without love, the latter of which is intended to reflect Namor's hatred of the surface world. To prepare for the role, Mejia underwent a vigorous workout routine to get in shape, as he was concerned about how he would look while wearing Namor's outfit, which in the comics consists exclusively of green swim briefs that Mejia referred to as the shame shorts. He also learned the Yucatec Maya language and how to swim. Manuel Chavez portrays a young Namor. Martin Freeman as Everett K. Ross, an agent of the Central Intelligence Agency CIA who has previous ties to Wakanda. Julia Louis-Dreyfus as Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, the new director of the CIA and the ex-wife of Ross. Angela Bassett as Ramonda, the sovereign queen regnant of Wakanda who is grieving the death of her son T'Challa. Bassett explained that Ramonda would be trying to balance leading her people, being a mother to Shuri, and keeping threats to Wakanda at bay, all while grieving the death of T'Challa, which is a lot for her to handle. While Bassett was initially unhappy with Ramonda being killed off in the film, Coogler reassured her that death is not necessarily permanent in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, and she felt that her character could return in the future, similar to how people were brought back to life following the blip in Endgame. Additionally, Michael B. Jordan reprises his MCU role as Njidaka Eric Killmonger Stevens, T'Challa and Shuri's cousin. Returning from Black Panther are Isaac DeBancole, Danny Sapani, and Dorothy Steele in her final posthumous role as the Wakandan River Tribe Border Tribe and Merchant Tribe Elders respectively. Connie Chiume reprises her role as Zawavari, previously the Mining Tribe Elder, but now the Elder Statesman, taking over the role held by Zuri in the first film. And comedian Trevor Noah also reprises his voice role as Shuri's AI Griot. Alex Livanali portrays the Talokanil warrior Atuma, while Maria Mercedes Coroy portrays Princess Fen, Namor's mother. Lake Bell, who previously voiced alternate universe variants of Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow in the Disney Plus animated series What If? 2021-2024, and Robert John Burke appear as Dr. Graham and Smitty, respectively, a pair of CIA officials in charge of the vibranium mining operation. Richard Schiff appears as the U.S. Secretary of State, while Kamaru Usman appears as a naval officer. Archival footage from previous MCU films of Boseman as T'Challa Black Panther is used in the film's ending, with Divine Love Konadu's son appearing as T'Challa II, Toussaint, T'Challa and Nakia's son. CNN news anchor Anderson Cooper appears as himself reporting on the Wakandan activities. Production. Development. With the release of Black Panther in February 2018, producer Kevin Feige said there were many stories to tell about the character, and he wanted director and co-writer Ryan Coogler to return for any sequel. Marvel Studios wanted to keep the creative team as intact as possible, while Walt Disney Studios chairman Alan F. Horn, despite feeling it was too early to discuss a sequel, was also positive about the desire to have Coogler return as director. Coogler wanted to see how Chadwick Boseman's T'Challa Black Panther would grow as a king in future Black Panther films, since his reign had only recently begun in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, MCU, in contrast to the comics, where he was king since childhood. In March 2018, Feige said there was nothing specific to reveal about a sequel, but Marvel had ideas in a pretty solid direction on where they wanted to take a second film. That month, Boseman's agent Michael Green was in negotiations for the actor to return as T'Challa in 2 planned Black Panther sequels for a reported pay of $10 million and $20 million, respectively. By October, Coogler had closed a deal to write and direct a sequel to Black Panther. Despite both Marvel and Coogler having always intended to work together again after the first film's success, Coogler avoided rushing into a deal. Negotiations with Coogler were completed under the radar in the months following the first film's release. He was expected to begin writing the sequel in 2019, ahead of a planned filming start in late 2019 or early 2020. In November 2018, Letitia Wright was confirmed to be reprising her role of T'Challa's sister Shuri for the sequel. When Angela Bassett, who played Ramonda in Black Panther, was asked if the main cast would return for the sequel, her husband Courtney B. Vance said they would. He said this included Michael B. Jordan as Ninjadaka, Eric Killmonger Stevens, who was killed in the first film, and Bassett agreed. Feige dismissed Vance's statement in June 2019 as pure rumor, saying there were no set plans for the film, as Coogler had just begun outlining it and had not yet shared his plans with Feige or co-producer Nate Moore. The next month, John Canny expressed interest in reprising his role as T'Challa's father T'Chaka in the film, and Danai Gurira stated that Coogler had confirmed she would be reprising her role of Okoye in the sequel. Feige confirmed the sequel's development at the 2019 San Diego Comic-Con, while Martin Freeman confirmed in August that he would reprise his role as Everett K. Ross in the sequel. A release date of May 6, 2022, was announced at D23 along with the placeholder title Black Panther 2. Feige said Coogler had completed a script treatment for the film that included a villain and new title. At the end of 2019, Ruth E. Carter confirmed that she would be returning from the first film as the costume designer for the sequel and said that she was set to begin work on it in the fall. Feige, Boseman, and Coogler discussed adapting elements of Boseman's more gung-ho performance as an alternate universe variant of T'Challa in the episode What If? T'Challa became a Star-Lord from the first season of the Disney Plus animated series What If 2021-2024 for the film. On August 28, 2020, Boseman died from colon cancer. Coogler stated that he had been unaware of Boseman's illness and had spent the last year preparing, imagining, and writing words for him to say in the film that we weren't destined to see. Feige and other executives at Marvel Studios were also unaware of Boseman's illness. Boseman, who had become thinner from his illness in the weeks prior to his death, had been prepared to begin gaining the weight back in September 2020 ahead of filming the sequel in March 2021. According to The Hollywood Reporter, industry observers felt Disney could recast the role, but that might generate a fan outcry and prompt comparisons between actors. Another suggestion was for Disney to shift their plans and have Shuri take on the mantle of the Black Panther, which occurred in the comic books. By the time of Boseman's death, Coogler was in the middle of writing the script and had already turned in a draft. In mid-November, executive producer Victoria Alonso said a digital double of Boseman would not be created for the film and added that Marvel was taking their time to work out what they were going to do next and how. Later in the month, Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, and Bassett were confirmed to be reprising their roles for the sequel as Nakia, M'Baku, and Ramonda, respectively, while Tenoch Huerta Mejia was in talks for an antagonist role. WWE wrestler Damian Priest, who was linked to the role, later claimed in 2024 that he was offered a part in the film, though he did not specify whether it was Namor or other character. But the offer was taken away from him apparently by Vince McMahon's regime, despite his availability. At that time, filming was expected to begin in June or July 2021 in Atlanta, Georgia. In December 2020, the film's release date was moved back to July 8, 2022. Feige also confirmed that the role of T'Challa would not be recast and said the sequel would explore the world and characters of the first film as a way to honor the legacy that Boseman helped build. He would later reaffirm that visual effects would not be used to include Boseman in the film, and also said it felt like it was much too soon to recast, noting how the world outside and within the MCU was still processing the loss of Boseman. By the end of the month, Boseman's makeup designer Cyan Richards was set to return for the sequel, while his personal costumer Craig Anthony said he would not commit to the film due to Boseman's death. Hair designer Deidre Dixon was unsure if she would return following Boseman's death, as well as the death of her sister. Feige said in January 2021 that the primary focus of the sequel was always about further exploring the characters and different subcultures of Wakanda. That same month, Jordan said he was willing to reprise his role as Killmonger as he felt returning to the MCU would always be on the table in some capacity due to his love for the character and for working with Coogler. In February, Daniel Kaluuya said he was unsure if he would reprise his role of W-Cabby. He ultimately did not due to scheduling conflicts with Jordan Peele's Universal Pictures film Nope, 2022. The sequel, however, establishes that W-Cabby was banished from Wakanda following the events of Black Panther. Pre-production. In March 2021, Coogler said he was still writing the script and described working on the film without Boseman as the hardest thing he had ever done in his career. He added that Boseman had held together the first film, and now as the director, he was the one trying to keep it going. He was able to reuse many elements of his planned film before Boseman's death while incorporating and applying the themes that the people who were hurting just as much as me could actually perform and execute and come out on the other side whole. According to Coogler, the original version of the script would have explored T'Challa dealing with resuming life after the blip, grieving the loss of time after being gone for 5 years, and involved T'Challa's relationship with his and Nakia's son, T'Challa Sick Toussaint, who he never met because of the blip. Coogler also said that Namor and Valentina Allegra de Fontaine were in the original script, with de Fontaine having a larger role compared to the final film. Coogler had envisioned Namor as a potential antagonist for a future Black Panther film while working on the first film and requested Marvel Studios not allow the character to be used in any MCU projects before the second film. Wright added that Shuri would have become Black Panther alongside T'Challa. Freeman said he would soon meet with Coogler to discuss the project. In April, Coogler wrote an op-ed in which he said the film would still shoot in Georgia, despite the state passing its controversial Election Integrity Act of 2021 law. Though Coogler did not support the bill, he felt that boycotting film production in the state would have a negative effect on the people who otherwise would have been employed by the film. He instead planned to raise awareness of how to overturn the bill. Nyong'o expressed excitement for Coogler's plans and how everyone involved was dedicated to continuing Boseman's legacy, later saying that Coogler had reshaped his ideas for the film to respect Boseman, which she felt was spiritually and emotionally correct to do. Moore described the film as how you move forward while dealing with a tragic loss. All of the characters, both old and new, are dealing with how loss can affect your actions in ways that are emotional and surprising. The film continues exploring feminist themes from the first film, with Nyong'o saying the film would tackle the beliefs, passions, loves, and arguments of the women characters, creating a robust drama. She also felt that Wakanda was a world we are striving to get to. The film introduces Namor to the MCU, while changing his homeworld from the comics, Atlantis, to Talokan, a decision made by Coogler to avoid comparisons with previous adaptations of the legendary Atlantis, seen in works such as the films Atlantis, The Lost Empire 2001 and Aquaman 2018. Talokan, named after Tlalocan, a realm described in several Aztec codices as a paradise ruled by the deity Tlaloc and his consort Chalchutlicue, is a lavish, hidden underwater Mesoamerican civilization that was inspired by ancient Maya culture, with the association between Atlantis and Mesoamerica coming from the book Atlantis, The Antediluvian World, 1882, by Ignatius L. Donnelly. The creatives worked closely with Mayan historians and experts to portray Talokan in the film. Coogler noted Talokan was similar to Wakanda in that it was also an advanced civilization hiding in plain sight, with Moore stating the two often find themselves in conflict because they're not dissimilar. They are these nations that would prefer to be hidden and isolated, with monarchs who are incredibly powerful and have strong points of view about how the world should be. Hannah Beachler returned from the first film as production designer, noting she did a deep dive to portray this version of Atlantis in the film. She was visually inspired by the films Jaws, 1975, and Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1977, and Jack Kirby's comic imagery. Several cast members, as well as Coogler, learned to swim for the film. The hand gesture that the Talokan people, Talokanil, use to greet each other throughout the film, in which their hands open and fold in a way that resembles the jaws of a sea creature, was suggested by Mejia, along with Mabel Cadena and Alex Livanali, as it was not part of the script, and was inspired by similar gestures depicted in the Codex Zouch Natal document. More than 2,000 outfits were designed by Carter for the film. The process of creating Namor's costume began about a year before production on the film had started, with Coogler asking several artists to help design the character's outfit. Most of them initially submitted drawings that were reminiscent of the costume by comic book artist John Romita Sr. that debuted in Submariner Vol. 1, No. 67, November 1973. But their ideas were rejected in favor of a design by then Marvel Studios visual development artist Anthony Francisco, who was inspired by the character's original green swim briefs-clad look. Carter worked closely with Marvel's visual development team and art department to design Shuri's Black Panther costume, sketching out ideas based on the character's appearances in the comics. Carter adorned Shuri's costume with a combination of gold and silver elements that she felt would highlight the character's femininity, wanting the costume's design to stay close to Shuri's form, the silhouette of a woman, with a bust and hips and shoulders, while also trying to delicately enhance the dynamic figure of the Panther suit. Costume company Film Illusions developed the material Carter used to create the Midnight Angels costumes. Carter said Ramonda's outfit has a strong presence of metal, featuring a collar that was 3D printed and painted to look like metal. For the Talocano costumes, Carter sought advice from Mesoamerican historians and experts, as well as oceanographers and marine biologists. She incorporated jade and aquatic elements, and referenced sea creatures in their headdresses such as Namoras, which resembles the fins of a lionfish, and Atumas, which resembles the skull of a hammerhead shark. Many of the costumes needed to be tested in water given the amount of underwater filming that occurred, with Carter stating, "Clothes aren't meant to be worn underwater for 8 hours and used again the next day. We had to rethink everything about what fibers could go in water and still look organic. We'd like to think clothes look like ballet all the time in water, but they just rise up." In May 2021, Marvel Studios revealed the film's title as Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, which Ethan Anderton of Slash Film believed was a fitting tribute to Boseman, since Wakanda Forever is the battle cry of the Wakandans. According to Moore, hundreds of different subtitles were considered for the second Black Panther film, such as Kingdom of the Deep in reference to Talokan, with Wakanda Forever originally intended to be used as the subtitle for a potential third Black Panther film before the creative team decided to use it for the second film, which Moore felt was the right decision, describing the project as a story about legacy. It's a story about persistence, and Wakanda Forever says all of those things. By the end of that month, Freeman said he had read the script and expressed excitement for it. At the end of June, Edgar Luna, the business development manager of Worcester, Massachusetts Economic Development Office, said the technical department of Wakanda Forever was in the city the week of June 25th to scout and inspect filming locations, including at the Worcester Police Department headquarters. Filming production started at Trilith Studios in Atlanta, Georgia on June 29, 2021, under the working title Summer Break. Prior to Boseman's death, filming had been set to start in March 2021. At the start of filming, Feige announced that everyone from the first film was expected to return. Autumn Durald Arkapaw serves as the cinematographer, after doing so on the Disney Plus television series Loki 2021-2023, replacing the first film's cinematographer Rachel Morrison. A longtime collaborator of Coogler's, Morrison planned to return for Wakanda Forever, but was unable to due to a scheduling conflict with her film Flint Strong 2024 caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Discussing the use of anamorphic lenses as opposed to spherical lenses, Coogler explained that anamorphic lenses warp the image a little bit, which fit with the film having the fog of loss over it. A profound loss can warp how you look at the world. Arkapaw used Panavision T-Series anamorphic lenses, which were specifically modified by Panavision. Wright, Gurira, Nyong'o, and Florence Kasumba bonded together on set while dealing with their grief for Boseman's death, with Wright and Gurira particularly connecting through taking walks together. Gurira described feeling emotional while entering the throne set, as she remembered filming scenes with Boseman during the first film, and said that Coogler helped her process her grief. Bassett said in July that the screenplay was still undergoing changes due to Boseman's death, and had gone through at least 5 incarnations. She also indicated that the first film's co-writer Joe Robert Cole was contributing to the sequel, which Feige soon confirmed. Michaela Cole joined the cast in an undisclosed role. In August, Ezek D. Bankole was set to reprise his role as the Wakandan River Tribe Elder, and Dominique Thorne began filming scenes for Wakanda Forever as Riri Williams before starring as that character in the Disney Plus miniseries Ironheart 2025. Thorne previously auditioned for the role of Shuri in Black Panther. Filming that month was expected to take place at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, and in Worcester, with the production preparing to film a car chase in Worcester by August 18th. A chase scene was filmed in the Ernest A. Johnson Tunnel on August 23rd and 24th. On August 25th, Wright was temporarily hospitalized with what were believed to be minor injuries sustained in an accident while filming a stunt in Boston. Wright went to her home in London for recovery in September, while filming continued to shoot around her character. Dorothy Steele, who portrayed the Wakandan merchant tribe elder in the first film, died on October 15th. She was in the middle of reprising her role for the sequel when she died. In late October, the film's release was delayed to November 11th, 2022. The production moved to the Mary Ross Waterfront Park in Brunswick, Georgia by October 22nd, where filming occurred from October 28th to November 2nd. Michael Torres, the manager of the Brunswick Landing Marina, said a 300-foot cruise ship would join the production in the following days, and most of the filming occurred on the water. Matthew Hill, Brunswick's Downtown Development Authority director, said most of the scenes were shot at night. By November 5th, filming of the scenes that did not require Wright was completed before the production went on hiatus on November 19th. This was to accommodate Wright's fractured shoulder and a concussion, which were more serious than initially determined and was not expected to affect the film's release date. The United States' Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, implemented new rules on November 8th, requiring non-U.S. citizens to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and provide proof of vaccination before traveling to the country. The Hollywood Reporter noted that this could present an issue for Wright's return to filming in Atlanta since she is not a U.S. citizen and was reportedly not vaccinated. In mid-December, The Hollywood Reporter confirmed that filming would resume in late January 2022 in Atlanta with Wright involved. Feige, Moore, and executive producer Louis D'Esposito confirmed upon the start of the hiatus that Wright was the film's new lead. Filming resumed by mid-January 2022, with a recovered Wright returning and was expected to continue for 4 weeks. Filming was originally scheduled to resume on January 10th, but was delayed by a week after cast and crew members, including Nyong'o, tested positive for COVID-19. At that time, The Hollywood Reporter reported that Duke had negotiated a pay raise for his return because of his character's expanded role in the sequel. The following month, Nyong'o revealed that Danny Sapani would be reprising his role as the Wakandan border tribe elder in the film. Thorne completed filming her scenes by March 13th. Additional photography began on March 18th in Puerto Rico, where filming officially wrapped on March 24th. Post-production. In June 2022, Mejia confirmed that he was appearing in the film, and he was officially announced to be playing Namor at the 2022 San Diego Comic-Con the next month, when Koel, Kadena, and Livanali were also revealed to be respectively playing Aneka, Namora, and Atuma, and Kasumba was confirmed to be reprising her role as Ayo. Damian Priest said that he had been offered a role in the film, which was reported to have been Atuma, as well as Namor. Reshoots occurred with the cast following their appearance at Comic-Con. Mejia said the reshoots were intended to add little missing pieces to the film. In late July, it was reported that Kamaru Usman had been cast in the film for a role that was subsequently confirmed to be a cameo appearance as a naval officer, while Richard Schiff was revealed to be cast in September. Leader Nate, universe variants of Natasha Romanoff, Black Widow in What If, was revealed to be appearing in the film in late October. In early November, Maria Mercedes Caroy confirmed that she had been cast as Namor's mother Fen in the film. By the middle of the month, Jordan and Julia Louis-Dreyfus were revealed to be reprising their MCU roles as Killmonger and Valentina Allegra de Fontaine in the film. Additionally, Robert John Burke was revealed to have been cast in the film. Both him and Bell were confirmed to be playing a pair of Central Intelligence Agency (CIA) officials named Smitty and Graham, respectively. Archival footage of Boseman as T'Challa Black Panther from previous MCU films is used at the end of Wakanda Forever. Unlike most MCU films that include both mid-credits and post-credits scenes, Wakanda Forever features only one scene. It shows Shuri being introduced to her nephew T'Challa II Toussaint, who was played by Divine Love Konadu-san. Moore said the creative team did not consider including an additional scene after the credits in the film at any point during its production, as they felt the ending was so kind of poetic that they thought it would be a little disingenuous tonally to do so, with Moore calling the film an emotional experience that, similar to the MCU film Avengers Endgame 2019, didn't need a stinger at the end. Wright said only 2 other children auditioned for the role of T'Challa Sue besides Konadu's son. Having felt inspired to become an actor by Black Panther, Konadu's son read many scripts in order to audition, a process he found challenging due to the character being different to his own personality, and once he landed on the role, he opted to watch the MCU film Captain America Civil War 2016 to prepare due to that being Boseman's first appearance as T'Challa. Several characters were considered to take on the mantle of Black Panther in the film, including Nakia and M'Baku, before Shuri was chosen. Aaron Toney, who served as fight coordinator on Wakanda Forever, confirmed that Namor's ankle wings are capable of growing back after a scene in the film showed one of them being cut off by Shuri Sil. There had been discussions regarding the inclusion of a romance between Shuri and Namor in the film, but the idea was scrapped. Michael P. Shaver returned as editor from the first film, while Jeffrey Bauman served as the visual effects supervisor. The visual effects for Wakanda Forever were provided by Digital Domain, Industrial Light and Magic, Wade FX, Cinesite, Rise FX, SSVFX, and Storm Studios. 2,233 out of the film's 2,548 shots involved the use of visual effects, which were created by more than a dozen VFX vendors. Perception designed the film's main on-end title sequence, which depicts Shuri's funeral clothes being burned to reveal a Black Panther suit underneath. The sequence was filmed practically using a specialized fireproof Panavision camera, with Perception igniting controlled flames on cloth similar to the fabric worn by Shuri in the film. Sound editors Steve Bodeker and Benny Burt, who both worked on the film, used the sound of rattlesnakes for Namor's ankle wings, an idea Coogler suggested about 2 weeks before sound editing was completed. In late November 2022, FX supervisor Chris White revealed that Marvel Studios created a 200-page Talokan Bible for the film that contains details about the kingdom such as its history, battle strategies, tools built, architecture, influence, and other elements. The next month, Shaver revealed that the film originally had a 4.5-hour cut that included additional scenes featuring Talokan and the developing relationship between Shuri and Williams, as well as a subplot involving the two of them teaming up with Namor to accomplish an unspecified task. Shaver attributed the reduced cut of the film to changes in its pacing and added that the removal of that material caused the film's narrative to be reworked, which was done during reshoots. Music. Main article, Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. In September 2021, it was revealed that Ludwig Göransson was set to return as composer for Wakanda Forever from the first film. His score was released by Hollywood Records on November 11, 2022. Black Panther Wakanda Forever Prologue, a soundtrack extended play, was released by Hollywood Records and Marvel Music on July 25, 2022, and includes Thames' cover of Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry, which was used in the film's teaser trailer, A Body a Coffin by Amare, and Soy by Santa Fe Clan. Göransson produced all 3 songs and co-wrote A Body a Coffin with Amare, Q-Steed, KZ, Cracker Mallow, and Mesu. In late October 2022, it was announced that the film's lead single would be Lift Me Up by Rihanna, written by Thames, Göransson, Rihanna, and Coogler, as a tribute to Boseman. The single marks Rihanna's first solo musical output since 2016 and was released on October 28th through Westbury Road, Rock Nation, Def Jam Recordings, and Hollywood Records. Thames stated she wanted to write a song that portrays a warm embrace from all the people that I've lost in my life. Lift Me Up was featured on the film's soundtrack Black Panther, Wakanda Forever music from and inspired by, which was released on November 4, 2022 by Rock Nation, Def Jam Recordings, and Hollywood Records. Voices Rising, the music of Wakanda Forever, a 3-part documentary series detailing the creation process of Wakanda Forever's soundtrack, had its first episode released on Disney Plus on February 28, 2023. In the first episode, Nigeria Past is Present, Coogler and Göransson work in Lagos, Nigeria to incorporate the sounds of traditional music along with contemporary artists such as Fireboy DML, Bloody Civilian, and Basiswa into the score. The second episode, Mexico con la Brisa, sees Göransson working in Mexico to once again blend traditional music and instruments alongside modern artists such as Fudekish, Vivir Quintana, and Mare Advertencia to create the sound of Namor and the Talokan people. The third episode, London, Bring It Home, sees Göransson recording the orchestra for the score at the Abbey Road Studios in London in mid-2022. While working to infuse it with the elements he recorded in Mexico and Nigeria alongside artists including Georgia Smith and Burna Boy, Göransson also collaborates again with Senegalese singer Baba Maal, who returned from the first film to provide vocals. The series was produced by Actual Films, JM Films, and Proximity Media. The series was originally scheduled to be removed from Disney Plus on May 26, 2023 as part of Disney's efforts to reduce content costs, but it was ultimately decided that it would remain on the service at that time. Marketing. The first footage from the film was shown in a sizzle reel of Disney's upcoming films during the studio's presentation at CinemaCon in April 2022. Feige, Coogler, and the cast promoted the film at the 2022 San Diego Comic-Con alongside a live performance from singer Baba Maal, Tama player Masamba Diop, and other African drummers and dancers, and the debut of the teaser trailer on July 23, 2022. It featured a cover of Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry that transitions into Kendrick Lamar's All Right, 2015. Both Leah Simpson and Giovanna Gellhorn of People called the footage powerful, 161, while Sandra Gonzalez of CNN felt the teaser commemorated Boseman's performance and wrote, "Amid the grief that permeates the preview, there's hope, the birth of new life, literally, and a glimpse at the future, with a clawed sneak peek of a new suited hero." Writing for IndieWire, Christian Zilko also felt the teaser commemorated Boseman's performance, while also opining that this presented a daunting challenge for Marvel Studios for Black Panther's future, due to Boseman being regarded as one of the cornerstones of the MCU moving forward, and the studio not recasting his role. Variety's Carson Burton and J. Kim Murphy felt the teaser focused on who would take on the mantle of Black Panther, noting the presence of a mysterious figure at the end of the trailer. The teaser trailer received 172 million views in its first 24 hours of release. Funko Pops for the film were also revealed a day after. The film was included in a sizzle reel shown ahead of screenings during National Cinema Day that highlighted upcoming films from various studios. Coogler, Wright, Duke, Bassett, and Mejia promoted the film at the 2022 D23 Expo with exclusive footage, which Aaron Couch from The Hollywood Reporter described as a gripping sequence. An official trailer was released on October 3, 2022. E.J. Panaligan at Variety and Narayan Liu of Comic Book Resources both called it an exciting trailer that provided a better look at the new Black Panther costume, with Liu adding it teased a more intense storyline centered on loss, strength, and the heroes of the MCU. Devin Coggin of Entertainment Weekly said the trailer was the best look yet at Wakanda's future, which ended with a stunning look at the new Panther suit. Gizmodo's Linda Kodega found everything in the trailer, from the music, the energy, and the intensity, to be incredible, and exclaimed the film appeared to be balancing political maneuvering, spycraft, and the kind of goofiness one would expect out of a Marvel film. In October 2022, Marvel partnered with Target for an ad campaign featuring Thorne reprising her role as Riri Williams. The minute-long ad was directed by Malik Vittal and shows Williams working on her Mark I Ironheart suit concurrently with a group of young black girls creating with Lego. Williams sees one of the girls at Target, who gives her inspiration for her suit's power source. Shannon Miller at Adweek called the ad a rare occurrence in mainstream marketing of two young black STEM girls interacting. The ad featured several MCU-themed Easter eggs and the song I Got the Juice by Janelle Monáe featuring Pharrell Williams. It debuted online on October 16, 2022, with an airing during Monday Night Football the following day. 30 and 15-second versions were also created. Marvel and Target's partnership also includes exclusive merchandise and augmented reality experiences within Target stores. Also in October, Sprite Zero Sugar launched a marketing campaign to promote the film from Whedon Plus Kennedy and Momentum Worldwide. Lexus ran an advertisement promoting its RZ450E with Gurira portraying Okoye. Lexus and Adidas teamed up to design a custom Lexus LC500 convertible for Juju Smith-Schuster during the world premiere. Both it and the Lexus GX feature in the film. On November 1st, McDonald's began selling Wakanda Forever Happy Meals, which included one of 10 toys based on characters from the film. Additionally, Kraft Foods released macaroni and cheese with Wakanda Forever-inspired shapes. A 6-episode podcast hosted by Ta-Nehisi Coates, titled Wakanda Forever, the official Black Panther podcast, features interviews with the cast and crew discussing the making of the film. The first episode premiered on November 3rd. 2022, and the subsequent episodes would be released weekly beginning January 2023. 3 episodes of the series Marvel Studios Legends were released on November 4th, 2022, exploring T'Challa, Shuri, and the Dora Milaje using footage from their previous MCU appearances, while a 2020 TV special entitled Black Panther, In Search of Wakanda, hosted by Robin Roberts and featuring interviews with the film's cast, was aired on ABC. To celebrate the launch of Adidas's Wakanda Forever collection, Calty Design Research, Adidas School for Experiential Education in Design and Carbon, partnered to design a custom Lexus RX 500h F Sport inspired by the film. Advertisers paid more than $100 million for the promotional campaign of Wakanda Forever, according to Deadline Hollywood. Release: theatrical. Black Panther Wakanda Forever premiered at the El Capitan Theater and the Dolby Theater in Hollywood, Los Angeles on October 26, 2022, 181. It also premiered in Lagos, Nigeria on November 6, 2022, an occasion Deadline Hollywood described as the first local premiere for a Marvel film. It began releasing internationally on November 9, 2022, and in the United States on November 11th. It was previously scheduled for May 6th and then for July 8th, 2022. The film was released theatrically in France despite the country's 17-month waiting period for when films can appear on streaming services after its theatrical release. Disney's decision to release Wakanda Forever in theaters was encouraged by the French government's acknowledgement that their media chronology needed to be modernized and their timeline to do so, after previously opting to skip the theatrical release of their film Strange World, 2022, and release it directly to Disney+. Under the current chronology, Wakanda Forever would first become available on Disney+ in France in early 2024. The removal of a depiction of a same-sex relationship between Ayo and Aneka, along with some other edits, were made for the film to be released in Kuwait. Wakanda Forever was released in China on February 7, 2023, becoming the first MCU film to be released in the country since Spider-Man Far From Home 2019. It is the final film of Phase 4 of the MCU. Home media. The film was released on Disney Plus on February 1, 2023, with an IMAX-enhanced version also available, $187. It was also released by Walt Disney Studios Home Entertainment on Ultra HD Blu-ray, and DVD on February 7, 2023. The home media includes audio commentary, deleted scenes, a gag reel, and various behind-the-scenes featurettes. Upon its release on Disney+, the film became the most watched Marvel film premiere globally on the service, based on hours streamed in its first 5 days. Reception. Box office. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever has grossed $453.8 million in the United States and Canada and $405.4 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $859.2 million. It is the sixth highest grossing film of 2022. Its worldwide opening weekend earned $331.6 million, marking the third largest opening of the pandemic era behind Spider-Man: No Way Home, $601 million, and Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, $452 million. Deadline Hollywood calculated the film's net profit as $259 million. Accounting for production budgets, marketing, talent participations, and other costs, box office grosses and home media revenues placed it fifth on their list of 2022's most valuable blockbusters. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Wakanda Forever was projected to earn $175 million in the U.S. and Canada on its opening weekend. By November 2022, Box Office Pro estimated the film's opening weekend in the U.S. and Canada to be between $170 to $205 million and projected the film would earn $435 to $543 million for its total domestic gross. The film made $84.3 million on its first day, which included $28 million from Thursday night previews. Its opening weekend earned $181.3 million, becoming the top film of the weekend. This marked the largest November opening weekend ever, surpassing The Hunger Games: Catching Fire, $158.1 million, and the third biggest opening for a film during the pandemic era, behind No Way Home, $260 million, and Multiverse of Madness, $187 million. Wakanda Forever remained the top film in its sophomore weekend, grossing over $66.5 million, representing a drop of 63%. The following weekend, the film remained atop the box office, grossing $45.6 million, a decline of 31%. Its gross over the 5-day Thanksgiving weekend was $63.8 million. The film remained atop the chart for its fourth and fifth weekend, earning $17.5 million and $11.2 million, respectively. In its sixth weekend, Wakanda Forever earned $5.3 million and was displaced by Avatar: The Way of Water. It is the third highest grossing film of 2022 in the region, behind Top Gun: Maverick and The Way of Water. Outside of the US and Canada, the film grossed $150.3 million from 50 markets in its first weekend. It had the biggest opening ever for a film in Nigeria, as well as the second biggest for a film released in 2022 in France and South Africa. Disney Africa reported that the film set an all-time box office record in West Africa and accumulated the biggest opening of 2022 in East Africa, as well as the second highest box office gross ever in Southern Africa. The five highest openings for the film were in the United Kingdom and Ireland: $15 million, France $13.7 million, Mexico $12.8 million, South Korea $8.9 million, and Brazil $7.1 million. In its second weekend, Wakanda Forever grossed $69.8 million for a drop of 49%, while in its third weekend it grossed $32.1 million for a drop of 53%. As of March 12, 2023, the highest grossing territories were the United Kingdom, $41 million, Mexico, $35.9 million, France, $33.2 million, Brazil, $21.4 million, and Australia, $19.5 million. Critical response. The review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes reported an approval rating of 84%, with an average rating of 7.210 based on 448 reviews. The site's critics' consensus reads, "A poignant tribute that satisfyingly moves the franchise forward, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever marks an ambitious and emotionally rewarding triumph for the MCU." On Metacritic, the film has a weighted average score of 67 out of 100, based on 62 critics indicating generally favorable reviews. Audiences polled by CinemaScore gave the film an average grade of A on an A+ to F scale, while PostTrack reported audience members gave the film an overall positive score of 93%, with 85% saying that they would definitely recommend it. Campbell at Empire gave the film 4 out of 5 stars, stating that the film stands out from a somewhat formulaic era of Marvel movies, held together by its compelling sense of place and by acting as a passionate eulogy for Chadwick Boseman, and feeling that it was imaginative and grounded, which makes the tilt to the usual CG-dominated spectacle a little jarring. Campbell lauded the performances of Wright, Duke, Bassett, and Cole, and described Mejia's character as a highlight, an imaginative adaptation of the veteran comics character, one who here speaks truth with convincing venom. Tom Jorgensen at IGN gave the film 7 out of 10, stating that it was an effective, emotional farewell to T'Challa, a meditation on forging one's own future out of a painful past, but with a plot that has to introduce an entirely new nation and pave the way for a new wave of Marvel stories. It does struggle under the weight of all that expectation. Jorgensen lauded Bassett and Mejia's performances, but he felt that Talokan had not been established quite as gracefully, and the film's third act had pushed its luck too far with a poorly conceived and logically baffling tactical choice. Owen Gleiberman of Variety wrote, "The movie doesn't have the classic comic book pow of Black Panther, and it's easily 20 minutes too long. We could probably have lived without the Talokan backstory. Yet, Wakanda Forever has a slow-burn emotional suspense. Once the film starts to gather steam, it doesn't let up." Similarly, Michael Phillips of the Chicago Tribune felt Wakanda Forever is not special like the first movie was. The quality of the storytelling, and especially the action sequences, grows less effective as the film proceeds. Nevertheless, he singled out that every actor on screen here is marvelous, even when the script and effects-driven spectacle settles for the wrong kind of more. Peter Travers of ABC News commended the performances from Bassett, Wright, and Thorne, but wrote the film's runtime feels long, with dragged-out battle scenes, excessive computer effects, and way too much franchise building. The BBC's Nicholas Barber said that the sequel struggled due to the loss of Boseman, but commended the visual effects in Bassett, Wright, and Lupita Nyong'o's acting. David Rooney of The Hollywood Reporter felt that, even if the length feels overextended, Coogler and his editors deserve credit for allowing breathing space between the action scenes for character and relationship development, with Ludwig Göransson's African-inflected score enhancing both those quieter moments and the big smackdowns. It's impossible for Wakanda Forever to match the breakthrough impact of its predecessor. But in terms of continuing the saga while paving the way for future installments, it's amply satisfying. Ann Hornaday of The Washington Post wrote, "Wakanda Forever winds up feeling hopelessly stalled, covering up an inability to move on by resorting to repetitive, over-familiar action sequences, maudlin emotional beats, and an uninvolving, occasionally incoherent story." James Berardinelli of Real Views gave the film 2 stars out of 4, criticizing the film's runtime and world-building subplots. He further wrote that the sequel is not so much a bad movie as it is disappointing and frustrating. There are some strong moments both in terms of character development, primarily for Shuri, who has the deepest and most compelling arc, and action. The car chase is perfunctory, but some of the battle scenes are well executed, but not enough of them. There are no rousing moments designed to elicit a mass cheer from the audience. French Minister of Armed Forces Sébastien Lecornu took issue with the portrayal of the French armed forces in the film, calling it a false and misleading representation. A scene in the film shows French mercenaries who were captured by Wakandans after they attacked an outpost in Mali being brought before the United Nations in uniforms similar to those worn by French soldiers in Operation Barkhane. This was considered a sensitive storyline for France, given its soldiers withdrew from its involvement in the Mali War in 2022 and were replaced by Russia's Wagner Group. Accolades. Main article, list of accolades received by Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, winning 1, a British Academy Film Award, 6 Critics' Choice Movie Awards, winning 2 Golden Globe Awards, winning 1, and 2 Screen Actors Guild Awards, among others. Bassett became the first actress to win a major acting award for her role in a Marvel film. In addition, with Bassett's nomination for Best Supporting Actress at the 95th Academy Awards, Wakanda Forever became the first Marvel film to be nominated for an Academy Award in an acting category. Documentary Special. Main article, Marvel Studios Assembled. In February 2021, the documentary series Marvel Studios Assembled was announced. The special on this film, The Making of Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, was released on Disney Plus on February 8, 2023. Future. Ironheart. Main article, Ironheart miniseries. In November 2022, Moore stated that the Disney Plus miniseries Ironheart would serve as a direct sequel to Wakanda Forever, with Thorne returning to reprise her role as Riri Williams. Ironheart premiered on June 24, 2025, as the last series and the conclusion of Phase 5 of the MCU. Sequel. In November 2022, Coogler and Feige were revealed to have discussed a potential third Black Panther film. In January 2023, Wright believed a third film was being considered, noting that the cast and Coogler needed a little bit of a break to regroup before starting work on a third film. By November 2024, Coogler had had discussions with Denzel Washington about casting him for a role in a third film. The next month, Moore announced plans to exit his role at Marvel Studios in March 2025 to pursue producing outside the studio, though he would return to produce Black Panther 3 along with Marvel Studios. Coogler confirmed Washington's casting that June. Plot. Queen Ramonda, Shuri, M'Baku, Okoye and the Dora Milaje fight to protect their nation from intervening world powers in the wake of King T'Challa's death. As the Wakandans strive to embrace their next chapter, the heroes must band together with Nakia and Everett Ross to forge a new path for their beloved kingdom. Review. I think I have MCU fatigue, which is why I never bothered seeing Wakanda Forever in theaters, so I waited until it hit Disney+. I've heard mixed reviews for it, with comic fans complaining that it ruins Namor totally changing his origin, but as I'm not a comic book guy, then I don't really care and am just judging this as a movie in its own right. The trailers for Wakanda Forever made it look like a somber affair, and that is very much the case, with some moving tributes to the late Chadwick Boseman, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. It's a tough situation, and no matter what director Ryan Coogler did with this movie, it would have disappointed fans in one way or another. Many suggested they recast T'Challa rather than kill the character off, and once again, no matter what they did, people would have complained. What we get is a movie without a lead, so it feels like a bunch of supporting characters, and we spend the movie waiting and hoping for someone interesting to show up. Shuri, Letitia Wright, is fine, but she feels like a side character and just doesn't have the presence as the new Black Panther. This makes the incredibly bloated runtime of 2 hours and 40 minutes really drag, and I think this is one of the most boring movies of the MCU. I actually turned it off last night, but decided I wanted to finish it to see what happened, and forced myself to sit through it. Wakanda Forever barely has any action, and too much takes place in darkly lit spaces where we can hardly see what's happening. The story also lacks urgency, so we never really feel like the world is in any great danger, and I felt Namor was defeated too easily. There are certainly some beautiful moments, with my favorite being the siren song of Namor's people when they attack the ship at the beginning, which is the best scene of the film. It is also arguably the most heartfelt film of the entire MCU, keeping the stupid quips to a minimum and the tone mostly serious. It's a study of grief, but also how revenge is never the answer, as it only makes matters worse. The final battle at sea, even if it is mostly CG, is decent, but hardly top-tier action cinema, so there is little that will stick with you in that respect. The performances are mostly impressive, with Tenoch Huerta doing his best with Namor, but I didn't like or hate him. He was just bland, which is a shame as he is one of the most important characters in the Marvel Universe. Angela Bassett gives a gut-wrenching performance as Queen Ramonda, who is stricken with grief, but trying to maintain Wakanda's place as a world power. She is never bad in anything, and is the most interesting character in the film. The music score maintains the themes from the original movie and is rousing when it needs to be, but mostly low-key, and not something I would listen to outside of the movie. Overall, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a bit of a slog to get through, with a ridiculously overlong runtime and little in the way of decent action scenes, so it's not something I'd sit through again. Despite its flaws, it is still a moving tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, and his presence is missed throughout. You'll be hard-pushed not to shed a tear at some point. The center of Black Panther Wakanda Forever, the sequel to the hugely popular Black Panther and a tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, is sincere, even if the overall film feels manufactured. It begins with a funeral for the recently deceased King T'Challa. Shuri, Letitia Wright, and Queen Ramonda, Angela Bassett, are dressed in white, following the black coffin, whose top features a silver emblem of the Black Panther mask and the crossed arms of the Wakanda salute. Their mournful procession, winding through the kingdom, is contrasted with slow-motion tracking shots of dancers jubilantly dancing in memory of their fallen king. After the coffin arrives at a clearing, where it ceremoniously rises to the sky, we cut to an earnest, emotional montage of Boseman as T'Challa. The solemn, aching continuum of images soon forms the Marvel Studios logo, announcing that this is still a Marvel movie. And Wakanda Forever is all the worse for it. What was the secret ingredient for the success of Black Panther? Similar to the resplendent, secluded African nation of Wakanda, Black Panther existed just outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It mostly stood on its own without the crushing requirements felt by every other film. The humor existed between the characters, not as random references to another property. The characters, with Andy Serkis as Ulysses Klaue as an exception, were particular to the story. The concerns rarely drifted toward franchise-building aspirations. But writer-director Ryan Coogler and his co-writer Joe Robert Cole don't possess the same kind of freedom with this melancholy sequel. Some limitations aren't within their control, such as the tragic death of Boseman. Others feel like a capitulation to assimilate into a movie-making machine. The hulking script is chock full of ideas and themes. Rather than fighting their common enemy, white colonists, Two kingdoms helmed by people of color are pitted against each other, an idea that never thematically lands, and the film must delve into the cultural pain that still exists from the historical annihilation of Central and South America's indigenous kingdoms. It must also contend with a bevy of other requirements, setting up the Marvel TV series Ironheart, in which Dominique Thorne will star, acknowledging the snap, grieving Boseman's death, and finding a new Black Panther. These competing interests are no less smoothed out by MCU's blockbuster demands that this must be a mainstream hit and usher in the next phase of the cinematic universe, and the weight of satiating black folks who feel seen by the fantastical confirmation of black regalism. It's too much for one movie. And you get the sense that this should have been two. At nearly every turn, Wakanda Forever fails, starting with its setup. Colonist countries, now afraid of an African superpower, are scouring the world from sea to sea, searching for vibranium, the metallic ore that powers the African kingdom. A young scientist named Riri, Thorne treated as a plucky afterthought, plays a role in a search that leads mercenaries deep underwater, where they encounter Namor Kukulkan, a menacing and bold Tenoch the king of Talokan, and his people, who are none too happy with the surface world. They want to destroy it. The godly Namor, his ears pointed to the sky, his winged feet fluttering, later surfaces in Wakanda, with water still dripping from his jade earrings and glimmering vibranium pearl gold necklace. He approaches a still mournful Ramonda and a bitter Shuri with a threat masquerading as an alliance. His appearance causes Wakanda to turn to Everett Ross, Martin Freeman, which leads to other cameos and subplots that weigh down the entire film with franchise expectations. What's imperative to Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the way Coogler centers righteous rage. Ramonda's first big scene is her admonishing the United Nations for expecting her to share vibranium with the world, even as they try to steal the resource from her nation. Bassett, with a capital A, acts in a sequence where her voice booms, her gaze is fixed and unforgiving, and the venom is felt. And yet, Shuri, who has buried herself in her lab, developing dangerous weapons, feels worse. She wants to see the world burn. Their shared anger forces a spew of short-sighted decisions that lead to further escalations with Namor, who desperately angles to avenge his mother and his ancestors. The film attempts to position the trio as different stages of grief, but in trying to get viewers up to speed on the atrocities experienced by Namor, it becomes slow and overblown. Maybe somewhere a way existed to connect these arcs, but that would require better visual storytelling than the movie offers. Far too often, the dialogue stays on the surface, either by providing reams of exposition, externalizing exactly what's on the character's mind, or by trying to meld together the real-life loss felt by the actors with that of the characters. The latter certainly offers these performers a necessary chance to process their hurt on screen. But when did filmmakers forget how to show without telling? Why are contemporary blockbusters so enamored with holding the audience's hand by providing every-minute detail? At one point, after Namor explains his entire backstory, Shuri responds with, "Why are you telling me all of this?" It feels like a note Coogler gave to himself. The shortcomings in dialogue and story, and how often Black Panther Wakanda Forever bows to IP-driven needs, would be easier to stomach if the visual components weren't so creaky. The jittery fight sequences are too difficult to follow. Inelegant compositions blur into an incomprehensible sludge with every cut by editors Michael P. Shaver, Kelly Dixon, and Jennifer Lame. Admittedly, there were projection issues with my screening of the film, so I will refrain from totally dismissing the all-too-dark lighting, but the actual framing by cinematographer Autumn Durald Arkapaw, working with the film's copious visual effects, lacks a sense of space anyways. Scenes of everyday life in Wakanda, black folks shopping, communities laughing and enjoying each other's company that once filled the viewer with joy, feel artificial here. The vast landscapes of the nation, which once were filled with splendor, are now murky backgrounds. Some of that awe is recaptured when we see Talokan and its immense Mayan architecture and decorative wall paintings. But you wish, much like Black Panther, that Namor was first given his movie where these scenes could breathe, and we could become as integrated into this kingdom as we became in Wakanda. Ultimately, this film attempts to set up the future through Shuri. Wright is a talented actress with the ability to emotionally shoulder a movie when given good material, but she is constantly working against the script here. She fights past a cringe cameo, she fights past clunky jokes, she fights past an ending that feels all too neat. An assured and charismatic Winston Duke as M'Baku is there to help, and a misused Lupita Nyong'o as Nakia is there for assistance. Okoye, played by Danai Gurira, provides resilience, and new addition Michaela Coel, I May Destroy You as Aneka, a quirky character who tonally doesn't work in this somber ensemble, is there for comic relief, I guess? In any case, the collective front of these performers isn't enough to stem the tide of a movie that relies on shouting matches and broad visual and political metaphors that have been boiled down to their uncomplicated essence rather than their complex truths, which isn't unlike Rihanna's turgid soundtrack offering, Lift Me Up. A major sea battle ensues, new ropey gadgets are employed, and loose ends are inarticulately tied. Another montage dedicated to Boseman occurs, and while the film is messy, you're relieved that it begins and ends on the right foot. That is, until the saccharine post-credit scene. I'm not sure what Coogler was thinking. He had more weight on him for this movie than any filmmaker deserves. But when this scene occurred, I audibly groaned at what amounts to a weepy, treacly moment that's wholly unnecessary, emotionally manipulative, and partially unearned. It's one of the many instances where Black Panther: Wakanda Forever might have its heart in the right place but is in the wrong mindset and the worst space, at the center of a contrived cinematic universe to mourn on its own terms. The fictional African state of Wakanda becomes a matriarchy in a fervent yet understandably subdued new Black Panther movie whose exuberant and mournful impulses are at odds with each other. We can also see almost in real time a franchise coming to terms with loss at the same as its fictional characters. Chadwick Boseman, who in the previous adventure had played T'Challa, King of Wakanda, died of cancer 2 years ago at just 43 years old. Now, this new film pays a heartfelt and decent tribute to his memory in a drama shaped around this sudden blow, making an honest attempt to shape a superhero film around the subject of grief. T'Challa's sister Shuri now has to step up to a quasi-regency role alongside her grief-stricken mother Ramonda, who now becomes queen because T'Challa has suddenly died. Here are two typically elegant and charismatic performances from Letitia Wright and Angela Bassett, with Wright's Shuri now stricken not just with sadness but a new kind of bleak self-knowledge. Despite her renown as a scientist, she could do nothing to prevent or even understand T'Challa's fatal illness. Wakanda's intelligence agent and valued counselor Nakia, Lupita Nyong'o, has gone into self-imposed exile in Haiti. On the home front, Ramonda and Wakandan warriors Okoye, Danai Gurira, and Aneka, Michaela Coel, have to deal with a truculent Jabari tribesman M'Baku, a formidable presence from Winston Duke, and also what they see as opportunist and predatory attacks from Western powers, including France and the U.S. at the UN, who, sensing weakness, now want to seize the Wakandans' precious mineral reserve of vibranium. And there is another sensational development. The CIA, in the form of careworn Station Chief Everett Ross, Martin Freeman, has employed brilliant young MIT student Riri Williams, Dominique Thorne, to design a new vibranium detector, which discloses a new source of this precious substance under the sea. But this turns out to be the property of another unknown people from a secret undersea city called Talocan, led by Namor, Tenoch Huerta, with Mesoamerican connections. The U.S. incursion into their property rights triggers a terrible conflict in which Namor's people, instead of making common cause with the Wakandans, wages war on them and the overground colonizers alike. As for Shuri, her destiny and birthright still lie ahead of her, a new female power in the land, and she has to decide whether she will be inspired in her time of trial by the memory of wise T'Challa or less salubrious figures. As with the last film, there are bold, extravagant gestures of spectacle, while Wright, Coel, Bassett, Gurira, and Thorne all supply fierce performances. Each of them ups the on-screen voltage simply by appearing. And first among equals here is Wright. Shuri finds that Wakandan's great burden, or even their tragedy, is that they are fighting people who should be their allies. And this movie, like the previous one, can claim to be working with the themes of empire, oppression, and even energy security. But I felt that there was a constraint at work. An understandable constraint given that the film is to some degree about grief and loss, but one which Wakanda Forever had not quite found a way of developing and absorbing. Black Panther. Wakanda Forever, the sequel to the hugely popular Black Panther and a tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, is sincere, even if the overall film feels manufactured. It begins with a funeral for the recently deceased King T'Challa Shuri, Letitia Wright and Queen Ramonda. Angela Bassett are dressed in white following the black coffin, whose top features a silver emblem of the Black Panther mask and the crossed arms of the Pak. Wakanda salute their mournful procession winding through the kingdom is contrasted with slow motion tracking shots of dancers jubilantly dancing in memory of their fallen king, after the coffin arrives at a clearing where it ceremoniously rises to the sky. We cut to an earnest, emotional montage of Boseman as T'Challa. The solemn, aching continuum of images soon forms the Marvel Studios logo, announcing that this is still a Marvel movie, and Wakanda Forever is all the worse for it. What was the secret ingredient for the success of Black Panther? Similar to the resplendent, secluded African nation of Wakanda, Black Panther existed just outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It mostly stood on its own, without the crushing requirements felt by every other film. The humor existed between the characters, not as random references to another property. The characters, with Andy Serkis as Ulysses Klaue as an exception, were particular to the story. The concerns rarely drifted toward franchise building. Aspirations, but writer-director Ryan Coogler and his co-writer Joe Robert Colden possess the same kind of freedom with this melancholy sequel's. Some limitations aren't within their control, such as the tragic death of Boseman. Others feel like a capitulation to assimilate into a movie-making machine. The hulking script is chock full of ideas and themes. Rather than fighting their common enemy, white colonists' two kingdoms shown by people of color are pitted against each other, an idea that never thematically lands in the film. Must delve into the cultural pain that still exists from the historical annihilation of Central and South America's indigenous kingdoms. It must also contend with a bevy of other requirements setting up the Marvel TV series Iron Heart, in which Dominique Thorne will star, acknowledging the snap-grieving Boseman's death and finding a new Black Panther. These competing interests are no less smoothed out by MCU's blockbuster demands that this must be a mainstream hit and usher in the next phase of the cinematic universe, and the weight of satiating black folks who feel seen by the fantastical confirmation of black regalism. It's too much for one movie, and you get the sense that this should have been two at nearly every turn. Wakanda Forever fails, starting with its setup colonist countries, now afraid of an African superpower, are scoring the world from seat. Hosi, searching for vibranium the metallic, core that powers the African kingdom. A young scientist named Riri Thorne, readed as a plucky afterthought, plays a role in a search that leads mercenaries deep underwater, where they encounter Namor Kukulkan, a menacing and bold Tenoquerda, the king of Tokan, and his people, who are none too happy with the surface world they want to destroy it, the godly Namor. His ears pointed to the sky, his winged feet fluttering later surfaces in Wakanda, with water still dripping from his jade earrings and glimmering vibranium pearl gold necklace. He approaches a still mournful Ramonda and a bitter Shuri with a Threep masquerading as an alliance. His appearance causes Wakanda to turn to Ever Ross Martin Freeman, which leads to other Kamos and subplots that weigh down the entire film with franchise expectations. What's imperative to Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the way Coogler centers Righteous Raydrum in his first big scene, admonishing the United Nations for expecting her to share vibranium with the world, even as they try to steal the resource from her nation. Bassett, with a capital accent sequence where her voice booms, her gaze is fixed and unforgiving, and the venom is felt. And yet Shuri, who has buried herself in her lab developing dangerous weapons, feels worse. She wants to see the world burn their shared anger, forces a spew of short-sighted decisions that lead to further escalations with Namor, who desperately angles to avenge his mother and his ancestors. The film attempts to position the trio as different stages of grief, but in trying to get viewers up to speed on the atrocities experienced by Namor, it become slow and overblown. Maybe somewhere a way existed to connect these cirques, but it would require better visual storytelling than the movie offers. Far often the dialogue stays on the surface, either by providing reams of exposition, externalizing exactly what's on the character's mind, or by trying to meld together a life loss felt by the actors with that off the characters. The latter certainly offers these performers a necessary chance to process their hurt on screen, but when did filmmakers forget how to show? Without telling why are contemporary blockbusters so enamored with holding the audience's hand by providing every minute detail at one point after Neymar explains his entire backstory? Shura responds with, "Why are you telling me of this? It feels like a note Coogler gave to himself, the shortcomings in dialogue and story, and how often Black Panther Wakanda Forever boast to hype-driven needs would be easier to stomach if the visual components weren't so creaky. The jittery fight sequences are too difficult to follow, and elegant compositions blur into and bly. Incomprehensibles ludge with every cut." By editors Michael P. Shaver, Kelly Dixon, and Jennifer Lame. Admittedly, there were projection issues with my screening of the films, so I will refrain from totally dismissing the all-too-dark lighting, but the actual framing by cinematographer Autumn Durald Ara, working with the film's copious visual effects, lacks a sense of space anyways. Scenes of everyday life in Wakanda, Black folks' shopping communities laughing and enjoying each other's company that once filled the viewer with joy feel artificial here. The vast landscapes of the nation which once were filled with splendor are now murky backgrounds, some of that always recaptured when we see Token and its immense Mayan architecture and decorative wall paintings. But you wish, much like Black Panther, that Neymar was first given his movie where these scenes could breathe and we could become as integrated into this kingdom as we became in Wakanda. Ultimately, this film attempts to set up the future through Shuri. Wright is a talented actress with the ability to emotionally shoulder a movie when given good material, but she is constantly working against the script here. She fights past a cringe cameo, she fights past clunky jokes, she fights past an ending that feels all too neat. An assured and charismatic Winston Duke as M'Baku is there to help, and a misused Lupita Nyong'o as Nikia is there for assistance. Okoye, played by Denny Guerra, provides resilience and new addition. Michaela Seal, I May Destroy You as Annika, a quirky character who tonally doesn't work in this somber ensemble, is there for comic relief, I guess. In any case, the collective front of these performers isn't enough to stem the tide of a movie that relies on shouting matches and broad visual and political metaphors that have been boiled down to their uncomplicated essence rather than their complex truths, which isn't unlike Rihanna's turgid soundtrack offering Lift Me Up. A major sea battle ensues. New. Ropey gadgets are employed, and loose ends are inarticulately tied. Another montage dedicated to Boseman occurs, and while the film is messy, you're relieved that it begins and ends on the right foot, that is until the Sakharin post-credit scene. I'm not sure what Coogler was thinking. He had more weight on him for this movie than any filmmaker deserves. But when this scene occurred, I audibly groaned at what amounts to a weepy, trickly moment that's wholly unnecessary, emotionally manipulative, and partially unearned. It's one of the many instances where Black Panther Wakanda Forever might have its heart in the right place, but is in the wrong mindset and the worst space at the center of a contrived cinematic universe to mourn on its own terms. Other information about this film. Wakanda Forever is a solid sequel. There are a few specific areas where the movie are at its strongest. One regards the action scenes that are solidly done. Some of the on-ground battles have a shakiness that can be distracting, but the camera stays with the fighters as spears clash or fists aim towards one another. There is more creativity with air chases and a few other types of action that make for an entertaining view. The other area in which the movie shines the strongest concerns scenes that discuss grief, similar to the predecessor. Black Panther 2 welcomes genuine discussions and debates about issues which I loved, and I'm happy to say that this aspect is increased here regarding the passing of Chadwick Boseman's character. May he rest in peace. The tribute to Boseman is very well done, and the audience was stunned with how quiet and powerful the scene honoring him are. In addition to that, Shuri, once again played fantastically by Letitia Wright, has much frustration and pain from the passing of her brother, and when she talks with other people about trying to cope with the loss and how one should deal with the hurt, The movie doesn't provide any easy answers to her hurt, which I love. Loss is a complicated experience in numerous ways. And this film doesn't dance around that one scene with a fantastically used camo takes a direction with grief that I was surprised to see in a superhero film for family audiences. And I was very impressed. What it leads to is a little predictable. And if I'm being honest, a little disappointing, but I'm still happy that this scene played as it did. It's also worth noting that the acting is also great. Angela Bassett is assertive and in some scenes intimidating. When confronted with the conflicts in front of her in her kingdom, she's incredible to watch in every scene. Wright brings plenty of charisma and humanity to a role that requires both, and she never disappoints. What keeps this movie from being great form is partly that the runtime is a bit much somewhere around the middle. I was still enjoying the film, but the pacing was crawling a bit with some of the explanation, and I did find myself checking my watch at least once or twice. As I've stated before, I'm not against longer runtimes if the story or experience makes it worth the while. But while I did enjoy this movie overall, I found some of the plot here to once again make me question in my mind why so many contemporary blockbusters feel the need to show and explain every detail. There's also an FBI subplot that doesn't add anything to the story, aside from a few bits of SOS humor. I was happy to see Martin Freeman, since he's always an interesting actor, but his character doesn't contribute much to the overall events. Additionally, another world of sorts is introduced in this film. It's neat to see some of the culture, but I didn't find this underwater world to be that different from other ones that I'd seen before, and I'll just say that the main antagonist of this movie has a legitimate motive, along with an intriguing backstory from his world. But I didn't fear him or find him that interesting. He's acted fine with a quiet assertiveness, but I feel that it takes a while before he does actions that make me sense his frustration for his home and his situation. All in all, Black Panther Wakanda Forever is a good movie, but not a great one. One even if certain elements don't click as much as they should or could be left out. The story, action, and the mace of grief and moving forward are handled well enough that I give it a solid recommendation. That I think I have MCU fatigue, which is why I never bothered seeing Wakanda Forever in the theaters. So I waited until it Disney. Plus, I've heard mixed reviews for it, with comic fans complaining that it ruins Namor totally, changing his origin. But as I'm not a comic book guy, then I don't really care. And I'm just judging this as a movie in its own right. The trailers for Wakanda Forever made it look like a somber affair. And that is very much the case with some moving tributes to the late Chadwick Boseman, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago. It's a tough situation, and no matter what director Ryan Coogler did with this movie, it would have disappointed fans in one way or another. Many suggested they recast T'Challa rather than kill the character off. And once again, no matter what they did, people would have complained. What we get is a movie without a leads. So it feels like a bunch of supporting characters, and Wes spent the movie waiting and hoping for someone interesting to show up. Shuri. Letitia Wright is fine, but she feels like a side character and just doesn't have the presence as the new Black Panther. This makes the incredibly bloated runtime of 2 hours and 40 minutes really drag. And to think this is one of the most boring movies of the MCU, we actually turned it off last night, but decided I wanted to finish it to see what happened and forced myself to sit through it. Wakanda Forever barely has any action, and too much takes place in darkly lit spaces where we can hardly see what's happening. The story also lacks urgency, so we never really feel like the world is in any great danger, and I felt Namor was defeated too easily. There are certainly some beautiful moments, with my favorite being the siren song of Namor's people when they attack the ship at the beginning, which is the best scene of the film. It is also arguably the most heartfelt film of the entire MCU, keeping the stupid quips to a minimum and the tone mostly serious. It's a study of grief, but also how revenge is never the answer, as it only makes matters worse. The final battle at sea, even if it is mostly CG, is decent but hardly top tier action cinema, so there is little that will stick with you in that respect. The performances are mostly impressive, with Tenua doing his best with Nayar, but I didn't like or hate him. He was just bland, which is a shame, as he is one of the most important characters in the Marvel Universe. Angela Bassett gives a gut-wrenching performance as Queen. Rhonda, who is stricken with grief, but trying to maintain Wakanda's place as a world power. She is never bad in anything and is the most interesting character in the film. The music score maintains the themes from the original movie and is rousing when it needs to be, but mostly low-key and not something I would listen to outside of the movie overall. Black. Panther Wakanda Forever is a bit of a slog to get through, with a ridiculously overlong runtime and little in the way of decent action scenes, so it's not something I'd sit through again, despite its flaws. It is still a moving tribute to the late Chadwick Boseman, and his presence is missed throughout. You'll be hard-pushed not to shed a tear at some point. More detailed Black Panther Wakanda Forever 2022 obviously would have been a completely different film if Chadwick Boseman hadn't died. However, it also would have been a very different film if the role of the Black Panther / T'Challa had been recast. I didn't even mind the complete reconstruction of Namor, and His Kingdom it made a sort of sense, given that this series of films has always been focused on non-European nations, and the power and glory that with the right resources can be built by nations of color. African in Wakanda's case and Mayan and Namor villains are always the white colonizers. Namor is not so much the bad guy as just taking misunderstood in the comic books. Namor is often depicted as an anti-hero boy that seemed really silly in the comic books. The Atlanteans naturally evolved to live underwater and were an undersea race for thousands, if not tens of thousands of years, so now we have a plant that turns Wakandans into Black Panthers with superior abilities, and another plant that turns Mayans into water-breathing humanoids. All these magic plants are really cool, but they also illustrate not the best in creative writing. The formula changed Namor differently. He became a mutant, this own words, with wings on his feet, retaining his people's previous skin color, getting point years in the comic books. All Atlantan shad point years, and while his people breathed through gills, she absorbed oxygen from the water through his skin, as well as having lungs in the comic books. Nayar had both gills and lungs, even with vibranium and the advanced technology and weaponry it affords. I can't see Wakanda and Nay's kingdom separately, or the two of them combined being able to accomplish this. The military forces of the major superpowers would eventually overwhelm them. It should say that Everett Ross Martin Freeman, Doze-Warren CIA Director Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who is completely misguided. That's good advice, but their verse is true as well at one point in the film. Ross defended Wakanda's actions by telling Valentina, both his boss and his ex-wife, to imagine how the U.S. would behave if they were the only source of the vibranium on the planet. She closes her eyes and says she dreams about that all the time. Yes, white people are greedy and without principles, except perhaps for Ross. Let's be fair. Namor was tricked into a trap that dehydrated him, and on top of that, the major part of the battle took place in a desert, so the odds were a little more even. Shuri even managed to rip off. Did impale her with a spear, but after unimpaling herself, I guess she has advanced healing powers because she beats the snot out of him. She had help. The aircraft they came in, which crashed, exploded, covering the sea. Prince in flames, Shuri could have killed him and almost did. After all, he did murder her mother in cold blood. When Shuri took the chemical to turn her into the Black Panther, she went on a vision quest, which was expected. But she met Kilmer Michael B. Jordan, which I didn't see coming. I knew they probably wouldn't try to use CGI to make Boseman appear as T'Challa. But I thought she'd meet her mother. I think it was Shuri's pain and anger that allowed Kilmer to appear and to impart how he would take care of business. This just added fuel to Shuri's already growing fear and hate. But as she was about to kill Namor, her mother appeared and offered a course correction. Really, Namor, you didn't have to attack Wakanda at all. From Ramonda's point of view, he kidnapped and threatened Shuri, and the Queen did everything in her power to get her back. She sent in Chalice's lover, Nikia Lupino, who has been in Haiti as the headmaster of a school for the past 6 years. Nikia was able to use Wakandan technology to invade where Shuri and Renee were being held, and freeing them, she killed at least 2 of the women who had been holding them. On the other hand, even the comic book Namor was hot-headed and impulsive. So I guess it's possible. He wouldn't see things reasonably. Maybe he would use the death of 1 or 2 of his citizens as an excuse to go to full-scale war with Wakanda and to murder its queen. It was kind of dumb that after Nayar's first attack on Wakanda, he said he'd come back in a week with his whole army and finish the job. Why didn't he come with his whole army the first time and finish it then and there? Instead, he gave the Wakandans a week to prepare for their assault. And in fact, that's all they needed. It was a plot device to give Shuri time to become the Black Panther, to marshal allies, choose a field of battle that gave Wakanda the advantage, and devise a trap that would render Namor weak enough to fight even after it was all over. Nayar revealed to Namora that having Wakanda as an ally would make them stronger. More than that, when the surface world came for Wakanda, they would turn to Namor, and it would be the excuse for them to conquer the surface world. After all, devious Undersea King Ross tried his best he could to protect Wakanda, even against his boss and his country. But he got busted and put in chains. He's freed by Okoye, who set a colonizer in chains. Now I have seen everything earlier. Shuri called Ross her favorite colonizer. Okay, they meant it as a joke, but there are plenty of people in the world who believe that you are your ancestors. And even if you never committed those crimes, you're guilty of them anyway. This film, directed by Ryan Coogler, screenplay by Ryan Coogler, Joe Robert Cole, story by Ryan Coogler, produced by Kevin F., starring Letitia Wright, Lupita Nyong'o, Winston Duke, Florence Kasamba, Dominique Thorne, Michaela Seal, Mabel Cadana, Tenek, Huerta Mejia, Martin Freeman, Julia Louis-Dreyfus, Angela Bassett, cinematography, Autumn Durrell, Arapo, edited by Michael Shaver, Kelly Dixon, Jennifer Lay, music by Ludwig Göransson. Production company Marvel Studios, distributed by Walt Disney Studios Motion Pictures, release dates October 26, 2022 in Hollywood, Los Angeles, November 11, 2022 in United States, running time 161 minutes. United States language English, budget $200 to $250 million. Box office, $859.2 million. So guys, this is the review of Black Panther Wakanda Forever movie and some information about it. How do you like our today's video? Please let us know by commenting. And if you like this video, please like it, share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.